in Russia. And there's a lot of propaganda. If people begin to suffer in Russia, and they are, there's no bread, things are getting more expensive. There's already claims that 10% of the Russian military force that went to Ukraine are dead. Will that be a wake-up call to the Russian people? The answer is no. Because you're familiar with this term, double down. Double down is an English term which means whatever direction I'm going in, I'm going to continue to go in that direction in a stronger, more forceful fashion. It's called doubling down. It means doing the same thing harder. So the Russian people are going to double down, and they're going to realize that they are victims, and they're going to be even stronger in their support of Putin. Question 12. Who are they going to blame? Putin for their mess, or us, NATO, for their mess? They're not going to blame Putin. They're going to blame the West. What has Putin identified what is going on as? What term has he used? He has said that Western sanctions are an act of war. They're a weapon. He's connecting the pain of the people with the invasion of war. It's all a defense or an attack upon the Russian way of life. This is not an invasion. This is a defensive move to defend the way of the Russian lifestyle. The West has bribed the Ukrainians filled them with Nazis, as they say. And when you go to defend your way of life, protect your fellow Russians in Ukraine, the West don't send airplanes, they send sanctions. Question 13. And that's why the idea that harsh economic sanctions will make ordinary Russians call for an end of the war a fallacy. Absolutely. So it's a fallacy that if you put sanctions on Russia, the Russian people are going to change. Answer. Absolutely. What the people will do in these difficult times is the opposite. They will stand in defense of their country, in defense of Putin. And they will see this display of Western strength as an attack upon them. Now, my personal thoughts, I'm not saying that sanctions are wrong. That they're not necessary. But they are too little, too late. The EU has totally misunderstood the dynamics, the situation in Europe. That in combination with 4 years of Trump has totally destroyed and weakened the West's position. And some of the worst offenders in this tragedy are the Germans and the French. We can blame the politicians of those countries, but those politicians have been elected to those positions by the people. It's not that easy to separate the Russian people from the Russian government. So likewise, it's not easy to separate the people in Europe from their elected officials. It may surprise you, but there are some people in this world who are more principled than others. When you go to Germany in particular, and you see what has driven that country over the past 10 years, it's more than 10 years, it's 40 years, is money. The Bible says filthy lucre. Filthy, dirty money. And now they're paying the price for this. But not only them, all of us collectively are. We're at the place now that Russia is threatening to press the nuclear button. However large or small that button is, because it comes in various sizes. Question 14. So how did they do that? Is the Russian state media, the nightly programs that they have, filled with bombed out Ukrainian apartment buildings? So how are the Russian media persuading the Russian people about what's going on? Are they showing the Russian people the same pictures that we're seeing? Of course they're not. Answer. No, they're not doing that. The Russian media is showing the Russian army attacking military bases. They're projecting strength. You see Ukrainian civilians, but you don't see pictures of them dead or being thrown out of their buildings. It's pictures of Russian soldiers handing out food to elderly people. It shows how they're helping the Ukrainian people against the great threat of the West. Question 15. So this is all part of the reunification narrative. Answer. Yes. It fits exactly nicely into that narrative, into that story. Reunify the people and save them from the Nazi government. And the Nazi government is just a puppet or an instrument of the West. And that's when maybe you might see some bombed out apartment buildings. Question 16. Why would Ukrainians be bombing their own apartment buildings? Answer. It's NATO that's doing that. Final question 17. It's a rhetorical question. It's a statement, really. NATO isn't attacking Ukraine. The answer. The covert Russian answer. Does it matter? They can just use the images and tell their own story. Because after all, this is an information war. As we see this war being prosecuted, developing over the weeks, it may have taken you by surprise. I suspect it has. What do I mean by that? What is the surprise? I'm going to suggest it's the following. It's part of the human psyche, the way we think, to compartmentalize things, to put them into nice little boxes. Maybe this is not the exact correct way of explaining something. But we have vertical thinkers and lateral thinkers. It's not exactly the correct terminology, but I'll use it. Generally, people are very poor at multitasking. At taking many pieces of information and integrating them together into a cohesive narrative. Our brains are designed, constructed in a certain way. And we have, I'm going to call it a bad habit, but it is necessary. We have a bad habit but it's necessary to take complex information and simplify it. What we do is look at the world, this complicated world, and try to understand it in a simple fashion. We want people to summarize things for us. Give us the short answer, the simple answer. We, Christians, are some of the worst people when it comes to this issue. I am one of the worst proponents of this. I'm one of the most guilty of doing this. What am I talking about? As soon as you start viewing the world from a parabolic mindset, when you start explaining a complicated world through parables, you are doomed. You have no hope of being hurt and damaged, because you will begin to think that things are straightforward and simple. And that, combined with the way that our brains work, leaves you in a very vulnerable and difficult place. So in the past, you read inspiration and you believe in what we call hot war. Then 4 years ago, we're told, no, it's information war. So because our brains are flawed, flawed almost means defective, but I don't want to use the word defective. Because what's necessary ends up becoming a problem. So we have flaws, we have weaknesses. Those weaknesses, those flaws are necessary, but they can be exploited. So we start talking about information war. And what do? In order to be able to live and function, in order to understand what's going on, that's what I mean. You throw away your old model and take the new one and replace it. This is not correct, but I'm going to call it replacement theology. Throw away hot war and take information war on board now. And what happens when you do that? When Russia says all these soldiers are just a military exercise, we're just training in Belarus, don't worry. We say, of course. It's just saber rattling. Because we know it's all information war. There's not going to be a hot war. And then we say, on the 24th of February, okay, it's a little bit hotter than we thought. But don't worry, because it's not a real hot war, because we all know what hot war means. It means American brutes on Russian soil. Or Russian boots on American soil. I want to remind you, I can't prove it. I can prove this first bit, but not the second. Fact. Ukraine is part of Russia. The maps may not show it. You may not believe it. The so-called Nazi government may not believe it. But Russia do. Not just Putin. That's fact. I can't prove that there are American troops on Ukrainian soil today, but there are. That's not the definition of hot war. What is? American boots on Russian territory. So this is the problem with our simplistic compartmentalization. When we were children, we thought as children. This is 2012, 2014, 2016. This is under the direction of FFA. We were children. But now we've become adults, we need to think like adults. We need to stop talking to one another as though we're children. When you have a teenager and they ask, what's going on? You simplify things. And we're so used to doing that amongst ourselves. It's easy to get caught off guard, which is what has happened. The Americans have got an open, stated public position. We should all know this. I believe we all do. If you've kept up with the news, you know this. It's this simple concept. They don't separate information warfare from a missile or hot warfare. They have an integrated response. If Russia takes down the electrical grid in the United States, through a computer virus, the Americans have the right, in their opinion, to go and bomb Russia. They don't say, oh, you slapped me, I'll slap you back. If you watch movies, and I know you don't, sometimes they have these scenes. These two gangs are going to come to a fight. And one of them pulls out a knife. And the other party says, and you came to a gunfight and you brought a knife. And they just shoot them. This is the American philosophy, the American idea, the American response. Any kind of attack, the response to that can be appropriate depending on what the Americans think. So if the Russians want to manipulate the American elections, as an example, America is free to take any response that it wants. That's how it views the warfare. So what I'm trying to say is this. As we view the Ukrainian war, and we speak about spheres of influence, we speak about information war, we speak about the death of the King of the South, we say that the King of the South will be brought down by his own people. These are all parabolic models. They are all correct. But when you see their fulfillment in real life, I'm suggesting that it's not as straightforward as you may think. So I've spoken about this Russian filmmaker, Maxim. I'll only pronounce his first name. Now, he is pro-West. In the few remaining moments that we have, I want to speak about someone else. And this person is not pro-West. We could call him a prophet or a guru. He's Russian. I'm sure some of you have heard of him, but probably most of you haven't. And as soon as I mention his name, you're all going to be on the internet finding information about him. Okay, what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to share screen a little video. So I'm not very good at this. So if it doesn't work, I'm going to seek technical help. So I guess I'm going to check with Daniel if I don't get this to work. So if he can be ready. So let me have a go. So is this working? Okay, so you can see somebody. So I'm going to put this video on. It's about 10 minutes. Now, obviously, this is all going to be in English, so I want to apologize to all the translators. What I'm going to do is just run the video, and after the presentation, I will send all the translators a transcript of this interview. What I was going to do is I was going to read through the transcript, but there's not enough time to do that because it will take some time. So I'm just going to send the transcript. It'll be straightforward for you to translate the transcript and attach it to this video presentation. So that's what I'm going to suggest, unless someone has a better idea, but they can tell me that afterwards. So I hope everybody is going to sit back and watch the video. And I apologize if you don't understand it because it's all in English. Now, remember, this person, you can see his name is Alexander Dugin. And you can see it says, Russia has a special truth. You have all heard the term unilateral and multilateral politics. You have heard people speaking about the New World Order. So after 1989, coming into 1991, the Americans spoke about the New World Order. And all the Adventist conspiracy theories said, see, there's a new world order. The globalists are going to take over. But we all know, you should know, because it's been taught before in the movement, what the Americans meant. They deceived the Russians. They said, we're all going to be friends. But they double-crossed them and said, we're going to have a new world order and we are going to be the boss. We will be the superpower. It will be a unilateral system, one leader, which is not what the Russians were promised. And this person is going to comment on this. And he's going to try to explain how the Russians see things. And remember, what this person thinks is what Putin thinks. Because Putin has developed his ideology, I'll call it his theology, from this person. Okay, so let's listen. Can everybody hear that? Oh, okay, so I can hear it at my end. I'm not sure how to do this. Someone's going to have to help me to sort out sound on screen sharing. Okay, I'm using headphones to communicate with everybody, and I can hear the YouTube audio on my computer loudspeakers, so I don't know if that's the problem. So I'm going to need some technical help from somebody.
Elder Parminder, can you hear me?
Yes.
When you screen share, right at the bottom on the left-hand side, it says share sound. Or so if you stop sharing and you go back onto share screen, at the bottom on the left-hand side should have written something about sound.
So do I press share screen?
Yes.
I press share screen
and then at the bottom on the left-hand side, yeah.
Okay.
And then you press play. Then you continue and you'll see it. The sound will be shared when you put the video on. Let's try it.
To explain.
Did that work?
To the
Perfect.
West.
Okay.
Everything is relative, and we in Russia, we could use postmodernity in order to explain to the West that if any truth is relative, so we have our special Russian truth that you need to accept as something that maybe is not your truth.
Even if it's not true.
But if the truth is relative, that doesn't mean that the truth doesn't exist. Yeah. That means that absolute truth, one for all, doesn't exist.
Let's take an example. If you watch Russian television today, you'd think that Russia and America were about to go to war.
Yes, but the same if we are examining, if we are reading American press, yeah, we have the same impression.
Not really. I've just come back from America. You don't really get that impression. Do you think this is genuinely the case?
No, I think that now the situation is in Syria, for example, United States continuing to be unipolar or continuing to consider itself as unipolar power. It says no more Assad, and Atlanticist powers of the Western Europe repeats after Washington. We doesn't want any more Assad, but Putin, other civilization says stop. Let have Assad, and after that there is our nuclear and military power behind Assad. So, and that is serious. If you are boss, you could not let the other decide, if you really is a boss, decide what to do in your realm of responsibility. It is conflict. And Russia says, no, you are not boss. You are not anymore boss. That's very serious. It is, if we insist on multipolarity, and if behind us there is nuclear weapon and the iron will to defend, for example, in the little case of Assad, defend Assad. Assad is principally not because we have so much interest there. That is the question of who rules the world. That is the problem. So that's possible war. Only war could decide really who is the boss.
Do you think that's really a possibility?
If United States...
I just want to stop for a moment. This interview was recorded in 2016. And for those of you who can understand the English, you can see what the struggle is about. He says, without using the term, it's a sphere of influence. They go back to Syria, Assad, and he says, we don't even care about Assad. It's not even a big issue to us. He says the only reason we protected or defended Assad was to poke a finger at the United States, the West. We wanted to make a statement, we Russia, that you Americans are not the boss. And we will defend Assad to make that point. He's telling you Assad is a pawn in this story. This is exactly what the message that this movement teaches has been saying. It's fascinating to watch prophecy being fulfilled in the words of a political commentator. I'll carry on.
States doesn't want to start a war. You should recognize, United States should recognize openly for all humanity, all mankind, that United States is not anymore unique master. So let recognize that there will be no war. But we understand our position is that we are going to fight up to the end in order to show to everybody that United States is not any more unique master. It's very serious.
When he says we will show to the end, if you tie what he said to the previous interview, what is the end? Russia has a GDP of that's equivalent to Italy. GDP is just like your economic strength. They're not a strong country. The only thing that makes them strong is their nuclear weaponry. And so when he says to the end, he means the nuclear option. We'll carry on.
Serious, because we are seriously going to show and to confirm that we are entering in a multipolar world. And the situation in Syria, on Ukraine, and anywhere else, that's only the case to prove that. We don't want that, but we understand that if we will be not ready to pay all the price for that, we could not gain.
So Ukraine and Syria are all about proving to America that they're not the boss.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That they are not unique boss.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Can we see what the issue today in Ukraine is? As he says, this is to prove a point. And this interview was recorded long before this Russian incursion, sorry, this Ukrainian incursion. We'll carry on.
When you watch the news on Russian television, do you believe what you see?
Absolutely, because
You're an intelligent man. Surely you can't
yes,
believe
because
some of the most outlandish things.
no, absolutely. Postmodernism teaches us to understand, or sociology. I'm sociologist as well. And what is total fact, according to Durkheim? Total fact. The founder of sociology, Emile Durkheim, affirmed that total fact, it is the fact the society believes in.
So if enough people believe it, it'll become true.
No, the truth is the question of belief. And postmodernity shows that every so-called truth is the matter of believing. So we believe in what we do, we believe in what we say, and that is the only way to define the truth. The truth is the matter of belief.
Can you see why the rhetoric, the position of Europe is naive? Listen to the news. Listen to what your leaders in Europe are saying. They want the Russians to have a level of common sense. And this man is saying it's nothing to do with common sense. It's about the truth. He has a version of the truth because he just believes it. And that's why you cannot reason with Putin. We have now arrived at the point of no return. The conflict between the two kings it's a war to the death. And what I'm saying is when that death happens, it's going to affect each of us in a more significant way than we realize. We've got 5 minutes left.
And that is not only our position, because when I see Western media, I ask myself how the people could lie in such way. They lie about everything in the world. But after that, I say to myself, stop, that is not lie. It is their truth.
But wait,
they are completely convinced that their truth.
I work in the Western media. I'm a reporter. I go out on the ground. I report what I see. Nobody tells me from on high.
No.
The
There is no
editorial line
such
should
thing.
be.
The fact, it's on always interpretation. There is no such things as a fact. Wittgenstein has proven that. There is no fact. There's only interpretation. You see because you interpret this or so. Our manner of thinking of any man, of any culture, of any civilization, it deals only with interpretation. You cannot see nothing without interpretation. What you see, it's interpretation.
I see you can argue that philosophically, but
it is not
if
practical.
somebody flies an airplane and drops a bomb on a building in Aleppo, somebody's flown that airplane. Somebody's
whose
dropped that
airplane?
bomb.
Who has fixed that? Whose airplane airplane is it? What is the bomb? What is the quarter the bomb is falling on? What are the people?
Yeah.
And there begins our interpretation, because it is
but
the
it's-
war.
but
It
it's
is
either-
very difficult to go in it to see and to prove. For you, any bomb falling is a Russian bomb. Any killed by Russian bomb should be an innocent civilian, and any harm that is done in the Aleppo or in the Syria is absolutely from the beginning. You have no idea that could be different, because you are real, normal Western man, Western reporter, Western journalist. It is your truth to say, to presume, to be completely convinced the Russians are evil. So that are their bomb.
But that's where you're wrong. I spent many years studying Russian and learning to love Russia and all things Russian.
But nevertheless, that are our bombs that destroy innocent civilians everywhere.
I'm not saying they all are, but sometimes they are, right?
Never.
Never.
Never. No. No. Only American and American marionettes of ISIS and the other Jabhat al-Nusra bombs are killing innocent civilians.
Because those are the only ones that are
That's
killing
our.
Can you see the narrative that he is portraying about Syria? Is the same gameplay that's being done in the Ukraine today. The Russians didn't do anything. It's all Western propaganda. What they did in Syria, they're now doing in Ukraine. It's the same plan. He says, you're a foolish, blind Western journalist. You have been manipulated by the Western government. He said none of it was anything to do with Russia. And that's exactly the narrative that they're portraying or giving today. Let's carry on.
Our interpretation, our vision.
But you can't really believe that. I mean, I don't believe it. I don't believe that that Russia is responsible for all the destruction. Neither do I believe it's responsible for none of the destruction. I mean, it's just not credible.
No, but when we see Western media, we see when, for example, someone is a little bit on the other, try to say that maybe not in any case the Russian bombers that destroy the civilians, so it is cut. So maybe personally there are people who are with broader sense of understanding reality. But if we take the Western media, we see that normal reportage, normal observation of what is going on in Syria is completely biased by these preconceived ideas.
And I understand that, and I recognise that. But isn't it true that Russian television has seen that there is implicit bias in how people report where they are, and they've taken it and multiplied it by 100.
We could speak on two levels.
Yeah.
If you affirm that the West says the truth and Russia says lie, I would respond, Russia says truth,
right.
that this truth is absolute truth, and the West says lie.
Okay, so we're playing a chess game. If I say to you, Western journalists are often biased and mistaken, but they try to tell the truth, whereas Russian TV has gone through the other side.
No. If you say that,
and they're not even trying to tell the truth.
If you say that Western TV is sometimes biased, sometimes not, I would say Russian TV is sometimes biased, sometimes not. If you say we are sometimes not biased, but you are always biased, I would say exactly, you are sometimes biased, we are sometimes
so we're
not
always
biased.
exactly equal.
Absolutely, and that is multipolarity. There, nobody has monopoly on the truth. The truth is relative. I could accept that, but only if you accept that. If you say our truth is absolute, I would respond immediately. Our truth is absolute. I don't believe that, and you don't believe it. Or maybe you believe. If you believe that your truth is absolute, you are normal Western man. But normal
I
Western.
don't believe anyone's truth is absolute.
Okay, we could agree on that at least.
So I hope that that interview was instructional. What I wanted us to see was a window into Putin's mind. Not so that you would agree or empathize, but that as observers, you would understand. This war between the King of the North and the King of the South that began just over 30 years ago, when the Americans announced a new world order, has brought us to this point. The Russians are fighting for their lives. When I say the Russians and they, maybe we can just say the King of the South. But Putin has got most of the country behind him, with him. And in many ways, he's on the defense, and the Americans, the King of the North, is the aggressor. This presentation is not, my purpose is not to defend or support the Russian perspective. That's not our objective as students of prophecy. What I want to do is help us to understand and see that the simplistic, parabolic stories that we have when they're fulfilled in real life are complicated and more painful than you may appreciate. Painful individually to ourselves. Because it means that we have to rethink some of the simple ideas that we had. I'm certain that each of our simple ideas of end-time prophecy are going to be challenged. And I don't want to portray that as it being a problem with you as an individual. that there's something wrong with you. That's not my point. We are human beings and we are inherently, I'm just going to say we're inherently weak. Our construction, our mind, our brains are fragile. And when God gives us a story, depending on how we want to view it, God either chooses or doesn't have a choice but to simplify things. So that we can hold on to things and believe them. But their fulfillment can be substantially different to what we expect. Each of us needs to pay attention to what's happening. And each of us must be careful that we don't lose our faith. As things may turn out, things may fulfill in a way that is different to our expectations. We have to hold on to a simple model whilst we're observing a complicated fulfillment of prophecy. If you can't hold on to these two concepts at the same time, you will make shipwreck of your faith. Let's pray. Holy God, I want to thank you.
Eu quero te agradecer.
I want to thank you that you have chosen me.
Quero te agradecer porque o Senhor me escolheu.
That you have given me the privilege of being in this movement.
Que pelo Senhor ter me dado o privilégio de estar neste movimento.
I understand that it's a combination of the human and the divine.
Eu entendo que é uma combinação do humano com o divino.
It must have been something that you saw in me.
Deve ter havido algo que o Senhor viu em mim.
That afforded me the privilege of being in this movement.
Que me permitiu, me deu a oportunidade de estar nesse movimento.
Complete.
Mas a minha jornada não está completa.
You're still observing me and supporting me.
O Senhor ainda está me observando e me apoiando.
And it's still not certain whether or not I will stay till the end.
E ainda não é certo que eu permaneça até o fim.
As I speak about myself,
Ao falar de mim mesmo,
I also speak about every person who is in this movement.
eu também falo de cada pessoa que está neste movimento.
Each of us was specifically chosen.
Cada de nós foi especificamente escolhido.
Identified and called out from the world.
Identificado e chamado do mundo.
You saw something special in us.
O Senhor viu algo especial em nós.
but that does not guarantee us success.
Mas isso não garante a nós sucesso.
There is still opportunity for us to fail.
Ainda há oportunidades para que venhamos a falhar.
As we see events fulfilling before our eyes,
Ao vermos os eventos se cumprindo perante os nossos olhos,
not only fulfilling, but we have an understanding of what's happening.
não só se cumprindo, mas ainda não entendemos exatamente o que está acontecendo.
In a way that we never had in the past.
De uma maneira que nós nunca aconteceu no passado.
We walked blindly through 9/11.
Nós andamos cegos em 11 de setembro.
We didn't understand 2014.
Nós não entendemos 2014.
We still don't understand fully 2019.
Nós ainda não entendemos de maneira completa 2019.
But we're here in 2022.
Mas aqui estamos em 2022.
And we understand enough about what is happening.
E nós entendemos o suficiente do que está acontecendo.
But it's caught us by surprise.
Mas nos pegou de surpresa.
The ferocity,
A ferocidade,
the heat,
o calor,
the destruction, the death.
a destruição, a morte.
Help us to understand
Ajude-nos a entender
that the death of the King of the South
que a morte do Rei do Sul
will be difficult and prolonged
vai ser difícil e prolongado.
and will not look as we suspected it would.
E não vai se parecer com o que nós esperávamos que pareceria.
I pray for myself
Eu oro por mim
and each of us in this movement
e por cada um de nós nesse movimento.
that we hold on to the truth that you have given to us,
Que possamos nos apegar à verdade que o Senhor nos deu.
that we don't lose our faith.
Que não venhamos a perder nossa fé.
In Jesus' name, amen.
No nome de Jesus. Amém.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry I went over time.
Obrigada a todos. Desculpa que eu passei um pouco do tempo.
We forgive you for that, our Parminder.
Nós
Thank you for your
perdoamos por isso, Sr. Parminder.
presentations.
Muito
We are
obrigada
really
pela sua
grateful
apresentação.
that you have participated with us in the Brazilian camp meeting.
Estamos muito gratos pela sua participação na Campal do Brasil.
And especially thank you for teaching us
E, em especial, agradeço por nos ensinar
that we are no longer children
que nós não somos mais crianças.
and that we have to rethink our simple ideas
E que nós precisamos repensar as nossas ideias simplistas.
and we need to move on to what's more complex.
E precisamos seguir adiante para o que é mais complexo.
So that in that way, our expectations
De modo que as nossas expectativas
will meet ends with what's reality.
se encontrem com o que é a realidade.
So we'll be back in the next 15 minutes.
Nós vamos
We'll see
voltar
you
nos
soon.
próximos 15 minutos. Nos vemos em breve.
Thank you, everyone.
Obrigada a todos.